All right. Welcome everyone to our Elevate Your Skills Zoom. We do this on the first Tuesday of every month. And then on the last Tuesday of every month, we do an Elevate Your Wellness. So make sure to mark your calendar to join us for that. It's going to be awesome. Tonight, I am super excited to introduce our guest. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicole Helmstetler. And I'm excited to introduce Nathan Cook. He is an award-winning business coach and speaker. He is the host of the More Than Before podcast and has worked with and coached a number of Juice Plus coaches, increasing their business, building their confidence, and helping them live into who they were created to be. He's a husband and a father, but most importantly, he's my friend and my coach. So please help me welcome Nathan Cook.
Aren't you happy? I did it just for you, Nicole. Oh man, I am so excited to be here with all of you. It's been a while since I've actually been on one of your guys' calls, but it's funny because I was going back through and I was kind of looking at some of the stuff that we've talked about in the past. We've talked about communication, we've talked about growth, talked a lot of different things that we've been able to go through. And it's funny because over the years, I have had the opportunity to work with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. I've worked with people who are in the financial industry, people who are in real estate. I've worked with neurosurgeons, like you name it, I've worked in that capacity. And one of the things that I started to notice early on in my career is that a lot of people either knew what they wanted or they knew what their purpose was in life, but yet they still weren't quite getting the results that they wanted. And when I started to look at that and I started to analyze that a little bit, I started to realize that one of the reasons why that was is because people didn't know who they were. Like they'd spend a lot of time trying to figure out what their desires were in life. What are my goals? What do I want to reach? What's the pinnacle mountaintop that I want to get to? I want to make this amount of money. I want to have an island in the middle of the Caymans. I don't know. People have dreams and goals that it's easy for them to pin down. And then you have other people that they've done the work and they say, oh, this is who I am. Like this is my purpose in life. Have you guys ever met someone that knows exactly what their purpose in life is? And at the same time, you're looking at them and going, I'm not sure if that's what your purpose in life is. I think you might be slightly off. And the reason for that is most people, when they're trying to identify what their goals are, when they're trying to identify what their purpose in life is, it's based off of a false identity of who they are. And that's when I started to really dive into the idea of more than before. More than before is a concept I developed about 5-6 years ago, working with my clients, working in workshops, and starting to realize that people needed to understand more of who they were so that they could show up to get the results that they've always wanted in their life. How many of you would like more results in your life? Okay, just a couple of you. Not everyone, but just a couple of you. Yeah, we all want more results. We want more money. We want more time. We want more vacations. We want more health. We want more spiritual relationship with our Creator. And yet, so many of us seem to struggle on this one particular topic of more every single day. By the way, I'm going to have you guys be responding here. So I'm going to pull up the chat here. I'm going to try and read it because it's really far away. But I want you to respond in the chat. I want you to be typing. I want you to be taking down notes, but I also want to interact with you today too. I might even, dare I say, have you unmute yourself and have all mutiny break out. All right. But we're going to be talking about more than before. What does that mean to live a life that is more than before? Because each and every one of us on the call today has been created for a very specific purpose. And if you're not living into that purpose today, if you're not showing up in the way that you were created to be, it's going to be a miss. You're going to start seeing some issues popping up in your life. I mean, when it all boils down, who we show up as, everyone really knows. Like when you show up at a meeting with someone and you're slightly off, that person knows. When you try to show up as someone else, I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience where you walk into a room and you see someone that you've not idolize, but maybe you look up to them and you say, I want to be just like them. I want to be just like them. Every single time that we lift someone up above ourselves, we actually downgrade who we are because we're actually lifting them up at a different platform. We are just as good in our own rights, in our own minds, but we have to believe that. And so there's a couple things I want you to be able to walk away with today, because first of all, you need to believe that there's more. So the first thing is believe that you're more. The second thing is you need to believe and see that there's more. So you have to believe that there's more, you have to see that there's more, then you have to be more. That means, how do you show up in your life? Who you are. And then lastly, what we're going to talk about is, how do you experience more in your life? So believe more, see more, experience more. Oh, I skipped one. So believe more, see more, be more, and experience more than you've ever had before. So let's dive into the believe more. Everything starts with a belief in our life. In fact, everything starts with a thought. Everything in the world has been created twice. Have you guys ever heard this before? Everything in the world has been created twice. Once in someone's mind, and then the second time when it comes into reality. And the world that you live in right now has been created by the way that you think, by the way that you have shown up in your life. In fact, take a moment right now. I want you to look around the room. Look around the room. I'm looking around my studio. I want you to, in the comment section, tell me the size of the room. Tell me the size of the room. How is it big? Is it small? Is it medium? How would you describe the size of your room? I'm going to wait for a second because I want to see some. Okay. Medium, pretty big, medium. I've got 5. Well, I've got numbers. This is great. I love this. So you guys have, I love that you guys got specific on this. I love that. I love like the 15 by 12. That's going above and beyond. But here's what I want you to understand. If you say big, if you say small, if you say medium, what is that relative to? If you say it's a big room, well, it's a big room compared to whatever you're comparing it to. It's a small room with whatever you are comparing it to. In our lives, we have this amazing gift that God gave us to be able to define what things are. Right now in your business, are you making a lot or are you making a little? It depends on what you're comparing it to. At the end of the day, it's all relative, but you have to decide, and it's a belief that you're going to carry over in your life, of whether or not you're worthy enough to have it. Are you worthy enough to be in a big room? Are you worthy enough to speak on a stage? Are you worthy enough to make the income? Are the people that you serve worthy enough to take the products that you have? You see, at the end of the day, we all believe something. We tell these stories about ourselves over and over again, and it shapes the way that we show up. It colors the way that we see the world. Have you ever heard the story of Jack? There was a man driving down the road, middle of the night, and all of a sudden his car starts to bump, gets a flat, pulls off to the side of the road, gets out, looks at the car. He has no jack. So he looks off in the distance. He sees a small little light, what looks to be off of the porch of a house. He's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of the evening. So he starts walking down the road and he starts to ruminate and think about, what in the world is this person going to say when I get there? And he starts to think, well, they're probably half asleep. I'm probably going to wake them up right in the middle of their sleep, and they're going to be frustrated with me, probably angry. I mean, I would be frustrated and angry. They probably have kids. They probably work jobs. They probably drive a long distance. I mean, they're in the middle of nowhere, so they probably don't even like people. They don't want people, walking up to their house in the middle of the night. And he's just getting more and more worked up. And he walks up the steps and he knocks on the door, pounds on the door, and the door opens. And this nice little old man says, "How can I help you?" He says, I don't need your jack. Turns around and walks off. How many times in our life have we thought that the person that we were going to talk to about the opportunity that we wanted to present them, how many times did we think that they were going to reject us, that they were going to say something bad to us? In fact, we were looking for it. You get what you're looking for in life. And it's all based off of the belief that you constantly ruminate in your mind about. Our beliefs drive behavior. If you think something's too expensive to sell, you're not going to sell it. If you think something's cheap, you're not going to want to sell that either. You have to understand that you have value in everything that you do, but it begins with the belief. And not only that, but when you have the belief and it's tied to emotion, now that is the cement. It cements our logic to be able to move forward, because you and I, we don't make decisions rationally. When the new iPhone comes out and people go to buy the iPhone, do you think they're buying it logically? Do you think they're thinking about it going, you know, I know my old iPhone is probably the same exact model, pretty much the same in every way, except maybe there's a couple new features, but you know what? Those new emoji faces, I think that I need that in order to live a better life, to live the best life God created me to be. No, you don't think that. What happens is you fall in love with the idea. You get emotional about it. You say, this is something that I desire so much because she has it, he has it. I'm going to feel left out. You see, we buy emotionally and we rationalize it on the back end. I hope you hear that, because that is one of the number one sales pieces that you need to understand if you're going to walk someone through any sales process, is that you have to get them to invest emotionally way before they even need the rational side of things. What do you believe? What are you bought into today that maybe you need to let go of? So the first thing we need to focus on is the way that we think and the way that we believe. That's the first part about being more than before. The next part is you have to see that there's more than before. Do you see opportunities or do you see problems in your life? I want you to write that down. Are you a problem-focused person, or are you an opportunities-focused person? My wife and I, we have this debate all the time of whether or not we're positive or whether or not we're looking for the negative. In fact, every single day we have to remind ourselves, are you looking for the positive? Are you looking for the negative? I don't know if you've noticed, in the world today, there are a lot of negative things out there. And you can choose to look for those. And if you saturate your mind with that, if we go back to thinking, if you think on those things, you're going to find those things. But if you start to meditate and think on the things that are good, if you start to speak gratitude in your life, you will start to see more gratitude. Do you see more than you've ever seen before? We were talking about the room example just a moment ago. You know why? Like right now, are you guys inside or outside? Would you say you're inside or outside? You're inside, right? Most everyone here is inside. But how do you know you're inside? How do you know that you're inside? We could go through some psychological tricks to figure out how we could talk about how we know that we're inside. But let me give you a really easy way to tell that you're inside. You know you're inside because you know there's an outside. The law of polarity means that there is an opposite to everything. If you know what poor is, you can know that being rich exists. If you know love, you can know that there is hate in the world. The law of polarity states that there's an opposite to everything. So the question is, what are you focused on? Are you focused on the things that you desire, the things that you want? Do you see those things? Or are you only seeing the things that maybe exist in the present? So we have to believe that there's more. We need to see that there's more, but we also need to be more. One of the things that I do with every single one of my clients is we walk through the idea of who you are. Growing up, when I was a kid, I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a fireman. I want to be a policeman. I want to be a pastor. I want to be an oceanographer. There were lots of things I wanted to be growing up. Do you know how many people asked me who I wanted to be? No one. In fact, as parents, I've got 2 young kids. No, 3 young kids. Yeah, we'll just stick with the 3 young kids. Stop laughing at me, Nicole. You know you forget your kids too sometimes. Sometimes I call them the wrong names. I call my kids the dog names sometimes. I think I'm losing my mind half the time. But here's the thing. When I look at my kids, I'm not looking for necessarily what they're going to do in their life. I'm looking at who they are. I'm looking at my daughter and how compassionate she is, but I'm also looking at how brilliant she is at reading the room. I look at my son, and he is smart, super smart. Like, I remember when he was a kid, he would stare at the hinges on the door and just analyze how they were working. Now, some of you are looking at me right now like, that's not what that means, Nathan. When your kid's staring at the hinges of the door, that means something else. No. I choose to believe that it's something else, okay? And then my other son, my youngest son, he is a ball of energy and he is an adventurer. He's trying to jump off of the dressers that he can't even get on top of. He's trying to do everything that everyone else. He's an adventurer. There are key aspects to my children that I'm going to start to hone in, to craft, so that when they show up, they are 100% of who they are meant to be. You know what's funny is if you were to focus on your kids and you were to speak into who they were created to be, they would one day find the things that they were good at. Rather than trying to find the things that they're good at and then losing who they are. Each and every one of us has gotten here to this point in our life focused on what we want to do. And yet many of us have never stopped long enough to ask, who are we? Who are you? One of the scariest things for us in life is solitude. Getting away from technology, a device. Maybe you want to get away from family. I won't judge you with that. But at the end of the day, being alone with your thoughts is scary. Being alone with you is scary because all of a sudden you have to walk through the stuff that you've carried your entire life. Who are you? Who are you today? When you show up in front of a potential client, who are you in that moment? Because here's one thing that I know. If you don't know who you are and you show up in front of a client, they're not going to know who you are either. There are 3 things that a potential client needs in order to buy from you. A transaction, a sale, is the transference of an emotion. That's all a sale is, the transference of an emotion. And the number 1 emotion that is sold is confidence. They need 3 parts of confidence in order to say yes to anything. They need to, first of all, have confidence in the product, that it works, that it is what it is. that you say it is. 2, they have to have confidence in you as the sales representative. I know a lot of you hate the word salesperson. It just feels dirty. Guess you got to get over it. Every single one of you have been selling since the moment that you were a child. When you wanted the ice cream cone, you sold your parents as hard as you could, and you used your emotions, screaming on the floor. Emotion. A child knows how to sell really well. And then they get older and they start to use logic. Really fascinating. So they need to have confidence in the product, in you, and lastly, they have to have confidence in the company. Most people can go and search a product. They can go and search a company and find out whether or not they like it. A person does not get a good pulse of who you are searching you on the internet. The only way that someone is going to buy from you is if you are confident and you show up in the skin that you are meant to be in. I don't know how much of you, of all of you, are Bible people here, but I want to drop a couple names. King David, one of the greatest kings ever to live. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's done some pretty spectacular things. But you know what's interesting? When he was the best, when he was on top of his games, he was himself. When he was a shepherd, he was killing things left and right. David is known, his 2 gifts, which is really funny to me. David's 2 gifts were worship and war. Think about that for a second. David was really good at worshiping, dancing, singing, and he was really good at fighting and killing. God gave him 2 things that he was supposed to do for the entirety of his life. And you know what happened when he fell from a place of honor? He didn't go to war with the people that he was supposed to be with. He neglected the one calling that God placed in his life of who he was, to be a protector, to be a leader, to go and fight and be on the battlefront. He wasn't there. He stayed home. He was going to do something new. Just relax. The guy's got it. Gets caught up in adultery and he murders someone's husband. Things happen when you're not in your gifts. Moses, another great leader that we look at in the Bible, he was really good at leading and listening. He was constantly listening to what the Lord called him to. But where did he fall short? When he stopped listening and doing what he wanted to do. God said, speak to the rock and water will flow. What did he do? He struck the rock. And because of that, he missed out on the promised land. Some of us on the call tonight are missing out on the promised land because you're trying to be everyone else. The world doesn't need everyone else. The world needs you to show up in the skin that you were created to be. And there are people that need your voice in their life to give them an opportunity to change their life. But it only starts when you can be transparent enough to be yourself in a crowd full of people. Are you who you were called to be? Now, we won't have a ton of time to go through this last piece. Well, one of the second to last pieces here. But one of the things I like to do is I like to go through the values exercise of figuring out what your values are. Do you know what your values are? Values to me are the guardrails of your life. If you know what your values are and you live by your values, you'll never be taken off course. Excellence is a value for me. Not perfection, excellence. Those are 2 very different words to me. Another value that I have, family is up there. I'm not going to sacrifice my family for other things. How many people do we know that sacrifice their values because, one, they don't know what they are, but two, they put goals and they put their dreams and passions ahead of their values? What are your values? What do you stand for? And if you're not sure what those are, if you're not sure who you are or what your values are, success leaves clue. Look back in your life. Look back in your life and ask yourself, when was I really doing well? When was I hitting home runs in my life? For me, when I was hitting home runs, I didn't realize this until years ago, but I've been teaching my entire life. I was in a karate school at the age of 9, and by 14, I was teaching. And for 15 to 20 years, I continued to teach after that. Each and every one of us has small seeds throughout our life that have been planted, that have grown, especially if we've nurtured those gifts. What are the gifts that you've been given ever since you were a child that you need to lean into today, that you need to show up as? And I say need because if you're not in alignment with those things, you're going to experience consequences like David, like Moses. But if you want the benefits that come with living as the person you were created to be, you have to remember it all comes back to identity, who you are and what your values are. So let's talk about experiencing more. We all want to experience more. So how do we experience more? Once we understand what our values are, once we understand who we are, once we have a vision, once we understand the beliefs of where we are, we have to start unshackling ourselves from the things that keep us from living as who we were created to be. David Thoreau said that growth of, let me think about this. And I have a bell going off in my ear for some reason. Oh, that's why, because it's my time. Hopefully I have a little bit more time. David Thoreau said that we grow spiritually by the subtraction of our life, not the addition. If you want to grow in your life, it's not about getting more. It's about what you're releasing in your life. What are you allowing space in your life for? Most of us, we have a living room. If your living room is chock full of junk, if you got stuff on top of the sofas, every single chair is filled, the floor is riddled with toys. That's my life half the time. And if you can have company come over and they see that there's no place to sit, they're not going to stay. They might say hi, they might check in with you, but they're going to leave. Most of us have dreams that need space. Are you creating space in your life for what God has for you? What are you carrying? Our backpacks are so full that you can't stuff anything else in them. That's one of the main reasons why I encourage people, find a coach, find a mentor to make sure that you travel lightly. Each and every one of us have been gifted with a purpose, gifted with tools, but you have to make sure that you have room in your backpack to take those tools wherever you're called to go. The last thing I want to say before we kind of wrap up is if you want to have more in your life, you got to make sure God is the center of it. And I say this because a lot of my life, I was told, have your dreams of what you want, have your goals, and then go after them fervently. And what happens is if you don't check with your Father in heaven that those are the goals you're supposed to be going after, you might get them, but it's going to be a painful journey. You see, each and every one of us, God is molding for a purpose. Right now, from what I understand, there's been some shakeups in Juice Plus. And some of you are maybe having to start back at a different place than what you would like to. And maybe that's painful. Maybe that's frustrating. But here's what I can tell you. In the times where there's difficulty and frustration, there are opportunities for God to mold us into who we were created to be. I'm reminded of the silversmith. The silversmith takes a raw piece of silver, places it in a crucible, and heats it up over a very hot furnace. And once it gets to a certain point, a certain temperature, you start to see impure particles float to the top. It's called the dross. And the silversmith scrapes the dross off the top of the crucible bowl, and he starts to heat the crucible back up again. And he does this process over and over and over. Maybe some of you are feeling that today, that maybe you're in a crucible. Maybe life is heating up. Maybe there's frustrations going on. Maybe you're going, God, I don't know what to do right now. And God's saying, just trust me. He's putting you in the crucible. He's purifying you. But here's what's interesting. This is what I found most interesting, because I heard the story of how silver was purified from an old gentleman at my church. He said the silversmith knows when the silver has been purified when he looks down in the crucible and he can see the reflection of himself in the material. The crucible moments that you have in your life are to make you more Christ-like than you could ever imagine. And when you walk in step, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but there's definitely going to be blessing in your life. So remember, if you want to have more, you have to be more. If you want to be more, you have to see more. If you want to see more, you have to believe more. And if you want to believe more, you have to think and know that there's more in your life. Thank you so much for everyone inviting me. Thank you so much to Michelle. Thank you so much to Nicole. It's been an honor, and really looking forward to the next time where I get to spend time with you.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Hey, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Easiest way is to shoot me an email at nathan@nathancook.net, or you can also go to nathancookcoaching.com. There is a form to reach out and connect with me. So good to see all of you. I saw Jamie on here. There's so many different people that, oh, there she is. Good to see you, Jamie.
Well,
So
thank
wonderful.
you, Nathan. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.